the sad reality and my fear is that places like Dearborn are lost. I don't know what it's going to take to recover that because the voting base there has completely been one-sided. It has been completely made one-sided. You may never see a non-Muslim city council or mayor or school board or anything in Dearborn ever again. But it needs to be quarantined. It needs to be contained. It cannot be allowed to spread. And the way that we do that is what I have been preaching from the first episode of this podcast, that Christians need to continue or discontinue being apolitical in this country. You need to get off the couch. You need to get out of your house. You need to get informed. You need to go vote. And you need to ensure that your political allegiances align with your faith. Well, welcome to the American Christian Podcast with Pastors Chris and Derek. I am Derek, he's Chris. We've had a pretty unprecedented week in our country, specifically here in our home state of Michigan, where Chris and I reside. We have now seen the first Muslim American, we've seen the first Muslim candidate to the U.S. Senate in the Democrat Party. Last Tuesday on primary day, Abdul El-Sayed has been nominated and won his nomination in the primary for the Democrat Party for the U.S. Senate. And this is unprecedented because we've never had a Muslim candidate for the U.S. Senate. Nobody's held a seat in the U.S. Senate that has been Muslim. And some people might think that's a big deal and think that we're making a big deal on a nothing and that we need to just kind of, he's a Muslim American. He has every right to run for Senate. But what we're going to go through here at a very basic level is that this is not just another melting pot candidate reaching a position of leadership in the U.S. government, that this has been a slow, methodical, intentional takeover of the American culture by these Muslim and Islamic people and people of the Islamic religion and people that have come from those areas of the Middle East where Muslim is the prominent faith. And we have a lot of organizations in operation here in the United States. People might not think that they are. The Muslim Brotherhood is very much in operation here. CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, has a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of ties to a lot of these groups and institutions. And some sources say that 42 Muslim Americans hold political office or public office in the United States. So that was how many were elected into 2025. However, 42 is not anywhere near the real number. So as CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, has reported here, there are 235 active Muslim officials in the United States in some form or another, regardless of what level that is at your local, state, or federal level. Arizona has 1, California has 26, Illinois has 15. Hey, Chris, our state of Michigan has 36. New Jersey, 49. They hold the number one spot for the number of elected Muslim officials by state. So we see right here these numbers, and it's very, very much higher than 42. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar get a lot of exposure as the kind of the face of Islamic politicians in the country. And now we have the mayor of Dearborn, Hamoud, has been getting some press lately. And now El-Sayed is really kind of taking the mantle going for his run for the Senate. But this has been going on for a long time, as you can see here on this chart. 235 total elected Muslim officials in the United States of America. And this is something that I think that we really need to watch for, because in 1991, we had a man by the name of, hold on, I got it right here. His name is Muhammad Akram, or Muhammad Adluni. He wrote a memorandum to the Muslim Brotherhood in North America experience, not in just the United States, but specifically in North America. It's an explanatory memorandum on the general strategic goal for the group in North America. It's an 18-page memorandum written by this man. And in it, he talks a lot about coalition building, base building, institution building, settlement building, building roots in the spirits and minds of society, infiltrating leadership and mobilizing in those regards, building mosques and Islamic centers, schools, Islamic organizations, as I already mentioned, CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, is an institution, is an organization that has been organized and built here in the United States. So this is not anything that's new. This memorandum was written in 1991, so it's 35 years old. And if there's anything that the Muslim Brotherhood and any other organizations that are active in the United States it's patience. They're very patient at getting what they want, which is transforming culture to the Islamic way of life, to Sharia. And in 2025, last year, there was an imam that his video went viral actually a while ago. We're going to play it here just so you can see, or you can hear and see for yourself what the tactics are. And this is an imam in a mosque speaking to his people during their session there together.
One day you're going to be the president of the United States of America. No one, koi Michael Ali, who can stop you from becoming a president. Dream big, have a vision. Because if Barack Hussein Obama can be a president, Sohaib Jawad cannot be a president. Tell me. He's going to be a president. He's talking about that the Muslims will take over Mecca. They used to laugh at him. What happened? What is Mecca now? Where is Mecca? It's coming. Change is coming to America. And what is Allah telling us? Kuntum khayra ummatin. You are the best of nations. You're better than everybody else. That's what Allah is saying. Let's work towards that. Let's work towards a Muslim mayor. Next election that comes in, nominate people for the school board of education. Next election that comes here, nominate people for the local township. Begin the demographics change. People converted. There's a big, huge conversion going on in this country. Where are the converts? They just convert and they're gone in the wilderness. The other thing, children. Muslims have the highest population. Average, Pew Foundation did a research study, Pew Foundation, and they said that Muslim household average is 3.4 child per family. The white American has 1 child per family. We're already beating the march because these are voters. These are not just babies being born in hospitals. These are voters. That's the way a politician looks at it. We have to change the framework and start looking at things from a different lens, different angle for future.
So there you go. He laid it out. Mayor, school board. He also laid out something that's very interesting that I know we've talked about before briefly, but the birth rate issue we have in this country and actually across the world, we're actually at a rate that is non-replacement rate. So the number of people dying off outnumbers the number of babies being born, and that is an issue. But according to him, that's not an issue in the Muslim world. They're having children at a much higher rate, almost 3 times the rate than the rest of us are. So we need to actually take these people seriously. We need to understand that this whole takeover narrative is just fear-mongering and it's not real or anything like that. Well, if it's not real, then why is this kind of stuff happening in Dearborn just a few weeks ago? Chris, that is an American city. That is a city in the state we live in. That's Dearborn, Michigan. And for years now, we've known that there's been kind of a migration to Dearborn by Muslims. For whatever reason, Dearborn was chosen. the Biden administration, I know, had a lot to do with importing people into Dearborn from some of these nations. And so this is what we get. 45,000-ish number is what I've seen as kind of an estimate of number of people marching in the streets of Dearborn. And you see, this is not, I don't see a single American flag in that crowd. They're all speaking Arabic. I've been to Dearborn. Dearborn is gone. Every building has Arabic on it. Most of them have Arabic and English. There are some where there is no English. So I've been there. I've seen it firsthand. Dearborn is lost. It's completely lost. They now have a Muslim mayor who will celebrate. He'll have a parade in the street, similar to what you just saw when the one gentleman that spoke at the city council for the protesting the renaming of one of the streets to a known terrorist. So this is a serious thing. This Muslim takeover of the United States. This is what they do. And as Christians, this should concern us because they are in an active holy war against anybody that's not Muslim, specifically Christians in the world. And this is actually what's happening in one of the American city, in an American city in the state of Michigan. And we're going to play some more videos that we're going to show here in a minute. But Chris, I want to get your input before we look at some of those. How concerning is this for you?
Yeah, I mean, just like you, I'm a stone's throw away from Dearborn. And you're right, like driving through it doesn't even feel real. There is Arabic everywhere. And you're like, did I get transported to the Middle East? That's how it feels. And looking at that video, that march there, like without any context, you would think that would happen in the Middle East. No, that's happening here. And the problem is that a lot of times we say this is just one city, right? But we're seeing this pop up all around the United States, and it's going to start to infect small town America. You just give it time. Like it's going to eventually start making its way to these rural states as well. So if we don't, start to fight back for our country. And, when we look to scripture, every time that, the Israelites got mixed up with other, gods, right? It tore them apart. I mean, God does not deal favorably when we just sit and allow this stuff to happen. And being in the United States, it's a thing where we have the opportunity to make our voices known, and we have the ability to keep this from happening. But we've got to step up and stand up and say, enough is enough. We can't be having stuff like this in America because it's going to infect our children, and soon enough, it's going to start getting integrated. I mean, it already does get integrated into Dearborn schools, right? And all throughout the city. I mean, they have mosques with the call to prayer going off in the middle of the day and night. And I hear that, it's like terrible living in there if you're, not Muslim, because they're keeping you up at all hours. But church bells, right? That's a no-go in Dearborn. And it's just like this feels like it's just one city, but close your eyes and open them again, and it's going to be the entire U.S. if we don't stand up and say something.
Yeah, and during that march, there was a gentleman there who was protesting, and he was exercising his right to protest. So he's standing on the side of the street. He's protesting. He has a megaphone, and he's just protesting Islam in America and illegal immigration and things like that. And this right here is what happened to him. And there's a couple things I want you to really pay attention. Not you, Chris, but the folks watching. If you're listening, you can't see it. But I want you to watch really careful and see if you see what I see as what one of the biggest problems here is in this video that we're about to watch.
Jesus is King of Dearborn, Michigan. We support ICE. We do not want these illegal immigrants here. Jesus is King of Dearborn, Michigan. I speak the name of Jesus.
And now he's just having to run for his life because he's
Yeah.
being chased and attacked. And he's running to a police car, trying to get into the police car, and they're beating him in front of the police officer. It's
There are
just, oh my
two things I
goodness.
want you to notice about this video. And we're going to let it play out here, but I might play it again just so people can see if they catch it. So one of the things that they're doing in this video, if you didn't see it, and it happened really quick, right here, as you were saying, he's running for his life. So when they go to bird's eye view, right here, you're going to see one of the gentlemen. He can't really see it in that video, but in the original full screen video, the gentleman right behind him, the man behind him, picked up a stone and chucked it at him. And you see a couple other guys, I think, do the same thing. So they're actively trying to stone him. And then, as you said, Chris, as he runs to a police officer. There she is. Runs to a police officer, and they're actively assaulting him. Hit him right in the head, right in the back of the head. They're still pounding him. And she's just trying to push him away, which is fine. You gotta control the situation. You gotta de-escalate. He was protesting. He was exercising his First Amendment right to protest. They do not have a right to commit assault. I didn't see anybody get arrested for assault on an American citizen exercising their First Amendment right. You can't assault somebody for that. You should be getting arrested and put in jail. So not only are they marching down the street and actively taking over United States City and changing the culture from within, they are now able to get away with assault on somebody who is not breaking the law. He was doing nothing wrong. And Chris, you saw some of the clips from the similar video. One of the captions on it was anti-Islamic protester agitates peaceful march or something like that in Dearborn. So the language that people are using are trying to make this protester the criminal. And these poor victims that are marching and doing their chants and their walking prayers and whatever else they're doing, they're the true victims. It's insanity. He's doing nothing wrong. He's standing on the side of the street. You can see him right here. I'm keeping this still shot up right here. You see him in the background. He's holding the sign. Jesus is king of Dearborn, Michigan, is what he says. We support ICE. He's protesting. He's just speaking what he believes. And instead of challenging him, these group of men walk up and start actively beating him. That's assault. They needed to be arrested and they were not. So now they're getting a pass on American laws.
Well, and the craziest thing here is that, so he's facing the road and talking to people at the road, and he gets attacked from behind. Like,
Yes.
not only does he get attacked, but he doesn't even have the opportunity to see, what's going on. But yeah, I mean, like, when you start to see the crowd just moving towards him in that police car, and they are undeterred. That police officer does not deter them from continually trying to beat on him as he's trying to get into the back of the police car. Now, I've never willingly ran and got in the back of a police car, but that's what he had to do in order to get out of this scenario. And it's like, if there's no deterrence, if there's nothing that keeps them from doing this, they're going to continue to do it again and again and again and again. And Christians are not going to have a voice because we are going to be actively beaten, literally beaten, for just saying the truth, right? Because Jesus Christ, he is king. He is king over the entire world. He is king over Dearborn, Michigan. He is, king over the Middle East. What he's saying there is absolutely true. And we've got to stick up. We've got to stop being passive, and we need to start being active in our approach, because I feel like there's too many times where we as Christians, we don't want to say that, right? We don't want to say that there is only one God, there's only one way to heaven, right? And be actually firm in that. But that is absolutely true. These lives need to be saved, and he is trying to, and yet there is demonic forces coming against him, trying to shut him down from being able to speak the truth.
Yeah. So here's another angle of, I believe, the same attack. So this is before his retreat to the police car. So this is from the other a view from the other side of the road of the exact same. I believe it's the same exact attack that took place, but we're going to see a little bit more up close here of what's happening.
No violence, no violence, no violence, no violence,
No violence. No violence. Well, they don't get it. They don't care. No violence.
I mean, look at that crowd.
And then watch these guys.
It's like
Kick,
25
no
on
violence.
2.
Yep. So this is kind of the same. This is the same guy right here. He's holding the sign. This is the same guy that eventually retreated to that police car. So no violence. They're pleading for no violence. They're saying we're not here to be violent, and they do not care. They kick, they're punching, they're chasing, they're trying to break a sign. That's assault. Assault. Dearborn police should be ordered to detain and arrest on assault charges. But the American laws don't apply to them because Dearborn has been lost. Because the Muslim mayor doesn't care. They're instituting their own laws. What do we know that they call their own laws? Sharia. So these gentlemen are violating Sharia law because they are speaking out against Islam. And we've already gone through that a few weeks ago. You can go back and watch the video where I talked about what Sharia law is. Now, there's a pastor out of Australia, out of Sydney. His name's Andrew Cedra. Andrew Cedra was born in Egypt, which he would describe as a moderate Muslim nation. His dad was actually a Christian who kind of preached the gospel around the country very dangerously. Even though it's moderately Muslim, it was still a very dangerous thing to do. So he was raised Christian, and he now pastors a church in I believe it's southeast or southwest Sydney, Australia. And he's going to explain to you exactly why this is a big deal, because what Islam does, what their tactics are, what they don't colonize. They take over, they infiltrate, they convert by force. This is what they do. So I'll let him explain the history of Egypt, which I think should be very eye-opening as it compares to America.
So we were the initial pagans that when Mark came in 50 AD and preached the gospel, there was a massive revival in Egypt. Before you know it, in 312 years, by the year 312, Egypt became a Christian nation, just like America. You gather like 70% Christian here. Egypt was 90% Christian. In 640 AD, Islam rose and declared war in the whole entire world. Before you know it, Islam waged war in Egypt. In 640 AD, Egypt became Muslim by the sword, by force. The men were killed, the women were raped, the children were enslaved. In the last 1400 years, Christians were literally genocided. Egypt went from 90% Christian, now it's less than 10% Christian. That is just a fact. Egypt went from 0% Muslim to 90% Muslim. From 10% Jewish, we have now 8 Jews that live in Egypt. 8, if they're still alive. That's according to the current stats. So if you think that wouldn't happen to America, the history books will fundamentally disagree with you. In fact, Egypt was more Christian than America. It wasn't just more Christian than America, it was a theocracy. So if you think American Republic can survive Islam, you're thinking a lot, like you're crazy. And you guys just celebrated 250 years of America. Egypt was Christian for 300 years. More than America. In fact, Egypt was the hub of Christian theology. You had Athanasius, literally one of the main writers of the Nicene Creed, who believe in one true God, maker of heaven and earth. Most of the church fathers were in Egypt. They had the Library of Alexandria, the Systematic School of Theology of Alexandria. In fact, the mission trips to Europe and to UK came from Alexandria. So what people don't understand, Egypt was an OG America.
I like that last statement. Egypt wasn't OG America. But what he said should be eye-opening to every single person in this country, every single Christian in this country, every person listening to us, every single person listening to other podcasts and shows or whoever else. It's time to not think this is a joke, because before we know it, as you said, Chris, what's happening in Dearborn is going to happen everywhere. The biggest question is, what do we do? How do we fight it? How do we stop this spread from continuing to happen? Well, the sad part is, and the sad reality and my fear is that places like Dearborn are lost. I don't know what it's going to take to recover that, because the voting base there has completely been one-sided. It has been completely made one-sided. So, you may never see a non-Muslim city council or mayor or school board or anything in Dearborn ever again. But it needs to be quarantined. It needs to be contained. It cannot be allowed to spread. And the way that we do that is what I have been preaching from the first episode of this podcast, that Christians need to continue or discontinue being apolitical in this country. You need to get off the couch. You need to get out of your house. You need to get informed. You need to go vote. And you need to ensure that your political allegiances align with your faith. So we've talked a lot about how the Democrat ideology and the Christian faith are completely incompatible. We played that Charlie Kirk thing. I'm going to probably keep playing that until everybody understands that it's incompatible. They do not mix biblical morality, the Christian ethic, and the democratic as in the Democrat Party ideology are incompatible. They're antithetical to each other. They cannot coexist. To use a term to use a bumper sticker term, the two cannot coexist. So as Christians, we need to understand that what we know about our faith, what we know about God, what we know about Christ, and what we're taught as far as how to live a Christian life and what the Christian moral ethic is. And you will see how it is contrasted to the Democrat principles. You have no choice but to not vote Democrat. You have to vote for the most conservative candidate, because they are the ones that uphold and protect life. They protect common sense, sexual issues and gender issues. They want to protect children. They want to maintain and protect the nuclear family and marriage. So, and on and on and on and on it goes. Fairness when it comes through taxation policies, and really when it comes to the poor and the needy. Conservatives want to allow people to keep more of their income to do charitable work that way, rather than the Democrats who want to steal as much of your money. Yes, I'm using the word steal because taxation really is theft. They want to steal as much of your money and then distribute it, this distribution of wealth, to who they see fit as deserving of your money. It is completely opposite of what Christ teaches. Christ teaches you go give it. Christ never said, give me your money and I'll give it to who needs it. So when people say Jesus was socialist, they're lying to you. He was not. A socialist Jesus would have took the rich man's money and then distributed it to whom he saw fit. That's what a socialist Jesus would have done. But what did he tell the rich young ruler? Go sell everything that you have and give it to the poor. He didn't say who. He didn't say how. He just said sell it and give it. But that was a test of his heart. So the man went home and he didn't do what Christ told him to do. But a socialist Jesus would have said, hey, rich man, give me all your money. And as I'm going about my travels, I will give it to whom I deem necessary and deserving of your wealth. So the Christians wake up. Continuing to support Democratic candidates, progressive liberal ideologies, and this political system of the Democrat Party cannot continue. Liberalism and Christianity are not equal, are not, they cannot yoke up together, or more of this is going to continue.
And one thing people don't understand is that this happened extremely rapidly. I mean, Dearborn is the home of Ford Motor Company, right? And so throughout the 20s, right, when the vehicles were starting to just become a thing, this was a strict, American city, right? And it had to have changed. And I don't know when the change began, but it has to be within the past 30 years. And so just to see one city fall like this in 30 years, really, goes to show how quickly, like he was saying, this can happen. This can go from being 90% Christian nation to a 90% Muslim nation if we don't stand up. And it's just, it's heart wrenching because we see what's happening
Chris,
in all these other
20
countries.
years ago, I used to go to Hamtramck to the biggest Polish festival in the country. It was in Hamtramck, Michigan. Hamtramck. Hamtramck now
Now,
has the
Hamtramck
first
is Muslim.
majority Muslim city council in the country. First majority. That's what is Hamtramck held that mantle. First majority Muslim city council. Used to be a Polish town. It's gone. Hamtramck's gone.
And so it's like, it's happening rapidly. If we don't step up, this is going to move, and it's going to, and unfortunately, because we both live in Michigan here, right? I have a feeling that it's going to start to move up to the state level, and we have to be ground zero for stopping this. And like you said, I don't know how we do it because Dearborn is probably gone, right? Like there's no way to get it back. I can't see, because I mean that imam, he makes some valid points. We as Americans, we are not creating more Christians, and we're not doing good evangelism either. So we're going to slowly, dwindle if we aren't, stepping up. And the problem is that, like I said, somebody said to me, I as a pastor, this is kind of a weird place to be, and to talk about, what we need to do here. But it's 100% true. If we are not stepping up and saying, Christ is the only way to heaven, right? Then we are going to be, ran over, and you know, Islam is going to take hold, and it's going to be leading people down a path to destruction. That's ultimately what this is doing, right? For the kingdom, it's not just taking over our country, but it's leading all these people down a path to destruction, and that is the saddest part. Is that if we don't step up as Christians, we are going to be failing, to try to make disciples of all nations.
Yeah, 104 million 104 million Christians sat out the 2024 election, according to that study that we talked about in the first episode. And that's just another door being opened. I mean, Islam loves abortion laws. Why are Islamic? So this is another question. So Abdul al-Said ran as a Democrat. The Democrat Party is a party of homosexuality and LGBTQ. The Democrat Party is a party of, all of these things that are antithetical to even the Quran. So why are they constantly aligning themselves with the Democrat Party? Well, it's because it's their easiest in. And the Democrats support abortion. And if Americans keep aborting their babies and Muslims keep having them, guess what? Yeah. What that imam just said is not only is the birth rate down, but it's almost going to be in a reversal because of how many babies are being aborted. Have your children, raise them to love their country, to love this nation. Especially if you're a Christian, help them, teach them to love God and to understand what biblical principles and ethics are, and to see how this contrasts with the Muslim religion of the world, and hopefully we can get a generation to actually start standing up to this, Chris. I mean, it's going to take small steps, and I think it's going to take at the grassroots level of just voting and quarantining and trying to reverse course through the ballots. And one of the things we can do is show up in November and make sure Abdul al-Said does not win that Senate seat in Michigan. Trump won Michigan, folks. There's no reason al-Said has to win the Senate. Get out and vote. We had a horrible, horrible Republican turnout for the August primaries. Horrible. I think it was like less than 30% of Republican voters turned out to vote. Democrat voters turned out in spades at 50% of the registered Democrats showed up to vote. That cannot continue in the general election. Can't. And if Republicans are going to continue to sit out elections and they're going to continue to not go cast their vote, then, you know, there's really nothing you can say when your city turns into Dearborn, Michigan. You didn't do anything to try to stop it because your vote does matter. Don't let anybody tell you your vote doesn't matter, because it does. Numbers matter. And remember Trump talking about make it too big to rig. And Michigan has a horrible record of election integrity issues. So we have to turn out in spades. We have to drive the numbers up. We have to vote. And Christians, you gotta understand what vote you're casting and how that does that align with your faith. That's the most important thing, because Abdullah al-Said does not align with your faith. It's plain and simple that he does not. And if you think he does, you have a completely misunderstanding of what the Christian faith is. Because as we played last week, Chris, in that 5-minute video of these progressive Christian churches who are completely distorting and brainwashing people into believing a Christianity that isn't real. It's a false Christianity that's being taught to people. And that's another problem that has to be fixed, but that's for another day.
But the problem, or the reason why they're doing it, like you were saying, is because the Democratic Party is the party of self-destruction of this nation. And so the Muslims know this, and they know that they're not going to follow through with it, right? Because they don't believe that abortion is legitimate, but they know that it would self-destruct our nation if they get into power, right? And that's what they're looking to do. That's what they're looking to do. It's not about the more morality alignment with the Democratic Party, because they do absolutely not agree with. I mean, LGBTQ, you're going to be beheaded over in the Middle East. Okay, it does not, align at all with, or throw. Yeah, it does not align with their thought process. But they know that it is the path of self-destruction, because again, the other thing here is that, like, LGBTQ, they're not having children. They can't. It's impossible. Okay. But they can, if you continue to push that, it's going to continue to thin out our country. And it's legitimately what they're trying to do. And it's because they want to have us be our own enemy in a way. They want to. They don't want to have to fight the battle. Like you said, they're patient. They're patient enough for us to take care of ourselves. And if we don't step up, that's what's going to continue to happen.
Well, one of the tactics Satan uses is nothing. Do nothing. They're destroying themselves. So I think that's exactly one of the things that he does. If he already sees us, to use a term that many Christians might understand as backsliding, if he sees Christians backsliding, or if he sees people going down the wrong path and as you said, self-destructing, one of his best tactics is to do nothing. So that's something that's at work here, is things are moving in a direction that he sees as beneficial to hurt God's people, and so he really doesn't have to do anything right now, because we're doing it to ourselves. We're confused. The Christian community in America is confused. We have so many false teachers out there. We have people in pulpits that have no business standing in a pulpit whatsoever, because they're feeding their people this false doctrine that's dangerous and heretical and poisonous. It's toxic Christianity at its worst. And
I was going to say, it's not only dangerous, it's deadly. It's absolutely deadly to their soul.
I mean, if you're Satan and you're watching what's going on in the United States right now, you're just going, I'm taking a vacation, man. There's nothing I got to do. They're doing it to themselves. What do I have to do? And he's just going to keep a close eye on us, because if we start trying to turn it around, Chris, you and I have targets on our back, because this is what we're trying to do. He's going to start getting active. So speaking of LGBTQ issues, we had a woman recently, Sophie Cunningham of WNBA fame. If you guys don't know what the WNBA is, that's the Women's National Basketball Association. A lot of people might not know what that is, but there is a women's basketball league, professional women's basketball league. But Sophie Cunningham got in some hot water because of some comments she made in a long interview an article with ESPN. And here is what she actually had to say in that article. The writer of the article says, "You say she's a MAGA Barbie, as some corners of the internet have taken to calling her. Projection," she says, because of what she looks like and where she's from. So if you haven't seen Sophie Cunningham, they say she looks like a Barbie doll. She's thin, she's tall, she's blonde. So that's just, they call her a MAGA Barbie. She'll weigh in on how to protect women's sports, she says, because she's in that world and feels qualified to speak to that world. Quote, "I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans." And I'm like, "I've never once said that," she says. "I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men." She is now hit a nerve with the left and with the LGBTQ community, because she wants to protect young girls in their respective sports and not have to compete against biological men. That is a no-no for a professional athlete. You are not allowed to speak against trans men or trans women at all. What is she thinking? So Sophie Cunningham made these comments, and it's been a big issue lately. Now, one of the things that when I first saw this story, Chris, was very much a Riley Gaines situation. Where Riley Gaines in swimming, now we have Sophie Cunningham in basketball, and there's actually a tennis player, I believe she's from Russia or somewhere Eastern European tennis player, who has now spoken out against trans women in tennis. So it's fueling the fire. We're seeing some of these prominent women in their sports speaking out, finally saying, no, this isn't right. We shouldn't be able to do this. But Sophie Cunningham, I think, is a little bit different. I did a lot of research on her. She is a professional woman. She does do a lot of things with like modeling, I think too, as well as being a professional basketball player. But she recently got rebaptized. Now, the way that it was explained was she was baptized when she was an infant. So she received an infant baptism. She made the decision, I wanted to do this myself. I wanted to make the decision to get baptized. And so she actually got rebaptized recently. And what she said was, I got baptized when I was little, but I was feeling a tug on my heart to do it on my terms as an adult. Such a fun, amazing day. Thank you, Jesus. And I saw the video of her getting baptized through her church down there in Arizona. So she's a Christian. And she's standing on Christian principle. This isn't right. She's standing on principle and what a lot of the women in her league don't understand is she's standing on principle of protecting them. If anybody's seen an NBA player, and to think that a man who's built like an NBA player, who maybe can't make the NBA because he's just not talented enough, because that's typically what we're going to see when it comes to transgender going into women's sports, is these are men that they couldn't hold a candle and compete in their respective sport as a man, so they have to now transition and infiltrate women's sports in order to compete. But biologically, the physical advantage that they have over these women is insane. Now imagine the physique and the skill of an NBA player, maybe somebody who played junior college basketball or semi-pro basketball, but they couldn't quite get on an NBA roster, so they want to go play women's basketball in the WNBA. Now they're a superstar. They're dunking. They're doing all kinds of stuff out there. That's not safe. It's not safe for the women that are playing it. And not only is it not safe, but now you're going to have women who normally would make a WNBA roster can't, because a transgender man is now holding that roster spot. So it's unsafe, it's unfair, it's all these different things. And so you wonder, is Sophie Cunningham going to stick to her guns here? And I'm going to play this video of her response to the negative feedback that she's been getting. And then, Chris, you're going to have the floor to really talk about what you're thinking about all of this. I see this as a win in not only the professional spotlight, but in the Christian spotlight as well, because Sophie Cunningham's response is what I would expect from somebody who's a Christian and how they would respond to the criticism that they're getting. So we're going to play that.
On that
and
same
then Chris,
vein, in
you're
that story
gonna
with ESPN,
have the
you
floor
talked about
here.
wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. So, like, I have 2 daughters of my own. You have a daughter of your own, right? What she's talking about is protecting our daughters as they continue to grow up. Because, say, my daughters decide they want to get into basketball or whatever, right? Tennis, anything. There's if they continue to be overcome by men getting into women's sports, they're never going to be able to achieve anything. I mean, you can't physically compete with a man running, like when we used to do cross country and I raced, like men would come in considerably faster than the women. And it's not because of any differences other than women are generally a little bit smaller. So their stride is a little bit shorter and their physical ability is just a little bit different. But, again, when this comes into physical and the NBA or WNBA is not insanely physical, but there is some physical confrontation. We saw it out on the court when she got called for a foul, that the other team elbowed her.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if we had LeBron James or Stephanie Curry out there, okay, they would be absolutely dominating these women to the point where it wouldn't even be a competition at that point, because you remove all of the fun. If you can't compete, you remove all of the fun of trying to compete, right? I mean, part of it is just being able to get out there and show your skill. But if you can't even do that, you know what I mean? And so that's what she's trying to say. She's sticking up, and she's coming from a Christian perspective, but she's speaking logically about it. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is something that you don't have to be a Christian to understand logically, that there is physical differences between men and women. And again, there is a moral factor in this, that men entering into women's sports removes that ability to compete and win those trophies again. So she's speaking of a Christian perspective, but this is something she said, you can just naturally see. But yeah, it frustrates me that we even have to have these conversations, because again, for our children growing up, I hope that we get a hold of this before, it gets to a point where there's just no WNBA. Listen, if that's what we want to do, if we want to create a third party, intramural sport, that's an option, okay? But you better recognize that the men are going to dominate that. The reason that we have women's sports is to allow them to be able to compete.
Yeah. There's definitely a competition issue. Men have more bone density, more muscle mass. From an athletic perspective, it's just men biologically just have that advantage. It's not a dig at women at all. It's just how we're biologically designed and made.
And this is common sense.
Can you have strong women? Sure. There's strong women all over the place. You can find women bodybuilders. You can find women who can, women who can go into combat and do things that men can, and actually pass, as Pete Hegseth has now changed the physical requirements for entering into for getting into the military, into a combat role, you now have to do the same physical standards as everybody else. Where before it was, I think men had to do something like 8 to 10 pull-ups, women had to do 1. So the standards were lowered for women, but that creates a very dangerous situation, Chris, when it comes into, when the bullets are flying, and in a time of war, you're going to want somebody who can do what you can do. If they have to drag you out, if they have to carry you, if they have to pull you up, you're in a very dangerous situation. They have to pull you up into a safe place or something like that. Physically, you have to be able to do that. So can there be strong women? Yes. But there is a clear biological difference between men and women. And that's where Title IX comes in, is to separate that clear, as she says, common sense biological difference, and to protect both leagues. Now, what I like about her response, and I know some Christians would be like, I wish she would have said something about, the Bible or something like that. I thought she did it very well, saying it's common sense. These are her beliefs. She's always going to believe in them. She's never going to change. Now, you and I can listen to her and know where she's coming from. But for someone who's not a Christian and listening to that, they don't hear proselytizing. They don't hear her preaching in the public square, right? So I thought that was a very nice way to respond in an already hot situation that she was in. We had, she didn't take the road of, like, that woman. I think I shared with you a woman, they were stuck on the tarmac in an airport, and she started preaching the gospel to everybody on the airplane. And then they told her that she had to get off the plane. So people say she was kicked off because she was preaching the gospel. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. They probably asked her to please sit down. You're disturbing the other passengers, and she wouldn't stop. So she was removed from the airplane. Now, should she have been removed? Yeah, sure. She was, creating a disturbance there. Should she have stopped preaching the gospel? No, because you and I, Chris, know that that's what we're supposed to do. So in that situation, I had no problem with what she was doing, but I didn't necessarily have an issue either with the airline saying you have to knock it off because you're disturbing the other environment for the passengers. Not necessarily what she was saying. So in Sophie Cunningham's situation here, I thought it was a very good response. She did very well on sticking to her guns, not getting too specific into her faith, but clearly stating what she believes in, and how that it does actually align with her faith. So kudos to Sophie Cunningham. I so hope she keeps it up. She knows she's put herself, as you said, into a very vulnerable position, because, like you said, she got elbowed in the face and she got the foul called on her. She's been having issues with the leadership of her organization. Other players have been speaking out against her. So she definitely is in a very tough spot right now in living out her faith. So I hope that she's able to stick to it. And again, this is one of those situations where Satan now is not going to sit back and do nothing. He's going to be very active around her and trying to get her to fumble up and kind of retreat on her statements and what she believes in.
One of the other things that I've been noticing is that we have actually had some, like, the only people that are going to be able to speak up for women's sports are women. If other women are continually saying that it's okay, then it's going to be allowed. Women have to step up and say, no, there are differences. We men, we can say it all we want, but until women start to back other women, right, there's going to be a continual, stepping over these women and just, letting men into it. I mean, women have to step up and say, no, it's not okay. It's not right. It's not, it's common sense that there are differences. And so I hope that Sophie Cunningham stays strong. I hope she somehow, if she hasn't connected already, connects with Riley Gaines, because we've seen Riley Gaines to be a very avid supporter of this issue. And I think that more women stepping up and bringing light to this is going to help realize, or help everybody realize that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed quickly.
Yeah, I think there was something, I can't find it right now. There was something with Riley Gaines and Sophie Cunningham, or Riley Gaines actually speaking out in support of her or something. I don't know if they've actually gotten together and done anything yet, but I know that Riley Gaines has been involved in this and has said something. So it's there now. You're seeing this kind of support network being built among these women who are actually speaking out in their respective sports. So that's a good thing. Now, another good thing that we can see, and we're going to go through these kind of quick, is we are seeing now in Oregon, we have a family, we have a husband and a wife who are suing the state after the state of Oregon has branded them child abusers for refusing to affirm their daughter's transgender identity. Now, in the article, there is a lot of domestic confusion and some complexities that are going on here regarding the biological father, the stepfather, and then the mother. But essentially what's happening here is the state of Oregon has deemed these parents to have mentally abused their daughter for not affirming her sexual identity. And the mother went as far, oh my goodness, went as far as showing her daughter videos of the opposing viewpoints of transgenderism, and even showing her videos of detransitioners speaking out against transgenderism and the dangers of it because of their regret for going through their transgender process as well. So this mother is completely mentally abused her daughter because she actually showed her objective information and giving her enough information to make an informed decision and to realize the dangers of what her daughter is wanting to do. But the state of Oregon intervened and didn't care. They have essentially tried to ruin the lives of her mother and her husband, the daughter's stepfather. And I know the biological father has gotten involved as well, making his own accusations as well. But these Christian parents, have sued the state. Essentially, it sounds like maybe a defamation issue or something going on here, but we're seeing Christians fight back regarding this transgender stuff. And we're also seeing that the Trump administration has defunded the less graphic sex ed in favor of lessons on marriage and family in the public school system. So this is a step in the right direction. Hopefully the next step would be to allow and give parents resources to do this sex ed at home themselves. So parents, Christian parents, this is your job. Do the sex ed at home. There's plenty of resources out there. We have books here in our home for our children that we read through and teach them, biology, and when they're old enough, teaches them the basics of sexual education and things like that up through teenage years. So they're very age appropriate materials that we have. But the Trump administration taking reverse on these sex ed curriculums in schools is very good. Centered around the nuclear family, centering around abstinence, centering around a solid heterosexual marriage. These sorts of things are going to be very beneficial. So we're seeing, Chris, I think you've even mentioned, we're seeing kind of a reverse course taking place in our culture. Not very mainstream, but very small pockets of these things happening that are showing that the culture is trying to train. To use to use a word that we probably shouldn't, to transition back to where we're supposed to be going. So this is good stuff. I'm really enjoying some of these small wins that we're seeing of people fighting back and these wins within public policy.
And one thing that I really want to mention here, I mean, when we're thinking about what sexual education should look like, I mean, when I was starting to go through school, it was moving from abstinence to prevention. Okay. And that's
Yeah.
what it's been for a very long time, since the mid 2000s. And so, and the reason, and then you get into the abortion side of things, right? And what you realize is that the abortion clinics have a big hand in how sexual education occurs, right? The reason why is that teenage pregnancy is probably one of the biggest avenues of abortion. And so what they're doing is they're saying, if something does happen, well, we can fix it for you. Okay. So what the problem is that we're not starting from the right basis here. We're starting from the basis that everybody wants to have sex. So let's just have it and prevent it, instead of saying that sex is something to be enjoyed inside the confines of a healthy marriage. And that is what needs to be at the beginning of all of this conversation, because that's what sex is meant to do. It's not meant to be a fun activity that everybody just does with everyone, right? It's meant to be something that you commit to your spouse and you procreate to raise up children, right? That's what it's meant to do, and that's why marriage needs to be at the beginning of it and not at the end of it, on the opposite side of it. So I like to see that we're beginning to start from there and teaching abstinence and teaching what really marriage is. But that's going to have to start again in our families, like you said, starting with you know, parents teaching their children. And the problem is that, um, there's still a lot of broken families out there. And so a lot of families who the kids are growing up not understanding the importance of marriage. So Christians, we need to come together. We need to really pinpoint that marriage is not something that should be taken lightly. It's something that needs to be done with um, deep discernment. I mean, and it needs to be something that you understand is a lifetime commitment to your spouse. It's not something that you're signing a piece of paper. It's not just a contract. It is a covenant. And
Yeah.
so and that's where all of this sexual education, all that needs to be started.
Yeah. And, sex within marriage is, it's twofold. As you mentioned, it's procreation, but it's also intimacy with your partner. Right. So, I believe it's First Corinthians talks a lot about to not, if you
Withhold.
separate, to come back together again. And there's a lot of things about not refraining or withholding from each other, and always coming back together for that intimacy within that sexual relationship. So God understands the procreation side of it. He also understands the intimacy side of it, because he created the institution of marriage and everything that gets involved in it. So it's good to see the administration doing this, and but from a Christian perspective, as we've been talking about, having those lessons with our children of, and even get the Bible out and show them in the Bible where God talks about this in the Old Testament, or where Paul's teaching about it in the New Testament, and how wonderful it can be within marriage for these specific purposes. And like you said, it's not for lust. It's not for us to go out and sow our wild oats and have those moments of lust with somebody else. So, yeah, I'm liking these little wins here. So, but speaking of love and relationships, we saw this headline: how much money do you need, Chris, to find true love in this world? It's a very interesting question. Americans have a very specific number. In this article, I believe it said you have to be making over $100,000 before you can find true love. This is just hilarious, and also sad at the same time, that people are attaching financial stability or anything like that to love. So this is a misunderstanding of biblical love. This was not written by anybody with any kind of Christian background or understanding, and I doubt, well, I would hope that they didn't petition and survey Christians in this study to find out what they've thought, because Christians should say it's not about money or any kind of financial metric that I use to find love. Love is not attached to anything other than how the Bible talks about it. And we can see that in 1 Corinthians 13. We all know it. It's the love chapter, right? Here it is on your screen for you right now. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love does not brag. It is not arrogant. Does not act unbecomingly. A whole bunch of stuff in here that Paul lists of what love is and is not. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. It never fails. So this headline is akin to what you and I have been talking about, Chris, when we see those bumper stickers say love is love from the transgender community and these kind of things. It's a misunderstanding of what love is. We've completely manipulated and have molested the definition of love away from the biblical definition to some secularized, worldly definition that doesn't actually provide any benefit to what love is.
Yeah, by this standard, I am broke, homeless, poor, and sad, and not married 10 years.
Well, if you look at the headline, look at the subheadline in there. It says the vast majority are screwed.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, and so it's interesting because I was reading this study a little bit more, and baby boomers actually push that bar a little bit lower, okay? And I think that goes to being said where our understanding has changed when it comes to marriage and dating. But Charlie Kirk said it best. He said Americans need to start getting married younger and have more children than they can possibly afford. Okay? And that is 100% true. Like, if you are waiting to be self-sufficient before you're having kids, you will never have children. Okay?
Yeah.
If me and my wife decided to wait and make $100,000, again, we wouldn't even be married. Okay? Because it's not about the money, but that's what tells you, like, that tells you how much differently, Gen Z thinks about marriage versus, because Gen Z, I think it was 78% of Gen Z respondents said their salaries or their partner's salary will determine whether or not they can find true love. 78% of Gen Z, the first thing that they think about is how much do you make? Not your personality, not if you're a great father figure or mother figure, not whether or not you're going to be a great partner, a spouse. It's how much you make, and it's just like that shouldn't
Well, I
be
don't know if you've
anything to
seen
think
these
about.
videos. I don't know if you've seen these videos of these women, the Gen Z girls and these women in that generation that have, you can find them all over the place, that they post videos about, if you want to be with me, you got to make this much money. You got to have this kind of car. You got to have this big of a house. You got to do it. They have all these material prerequisites before they'll even consider you as a potential suitor or partner or whatever you want to call it. And I even told you that when they surveyed Gen Z, the number one thing that Gen Z men are like, so you said 78% of Gen Z respondents, was it 78 or 73, responded that, that
78.
financial metric was the important part. I would imagine the vast majority of that 78% are women. Because the number one thing that Gen Z men are looking for in life, their number one life goal is to get married and have a family. That goal on the list of Gen Z women were surveyed wasn't even in the top 10.
Well,
So
can I tell you
there's
one other thing that I think is a big problem? Whenever and maybe this, like, this is particularly when I was in the military, we would see this, but I've seen this outside of the military as well, and I think it's much more common now than it was back in the day. But a husband and wife, they get married and they keep separate bank accounts and have one bank account that they put money into for bills. Okay. That blows my mind. And the idea behind it is that, well, if we get divorced, I can take my money, you take your money, and we go. But then at that point, you're not like
you're
deciding
already planning for failure.
to commit. Yes, you're planning for failure, and you're not planning to commit to this long term. You're saying, we don't know if this is actually going to work out, so let's just keep this separate. You've got to be full in. This is your spouse, your wife, your husband, and it shows how big of a problem we have with a commitment issue. And again, it's something I've seen more and more, and I don't understand how they do it, because like me and my wife, we have a joint bank account. I'm assuming that you guys are the exact same way. And whatever money I make, it's not my money. At the end of the day, it's our money. If Rochelle, and this goes back to communicating things, like Rochelle and I, like, if we want to go if I want to get lunch, I text her and I do the courtesy of saying, hey, do you mind? And never once have either of us ever said, no, you know what? You don't get lunch. Okay. But it's the courtesy of saying this is ours, and recognizing that it's not just one, when you become a family or a unit, it's you can't keep this stuff separate. It
No. And I put 1 Corinthians 13 back up there because I want people to be able to see it. This is very important to see what I think Paul in 13 short verses encapsulates what love is. And nowhere in those 13 verses do you see anything about money. Not once do you see anything about money. It's sacrificial. Love isn't about you. It's about the other person. It's not about what that person does for you. Like, how do you make me feel? Well, I love how they do this for me. Well, if somebody stops doing that for you, you're going to stop loving them. So, love is about your actions towards that person. It's sacrificial. It's emptying yourself to, in, and for, and everything about that other person. Same thing like we do with Christ. If we love Christ, we're surrendering ourselves to him. So it's not so much what he does for us, it's how we react to him. His love was demonstrated for us by sacrificing himself. It was his action for us. That's what his love, is illustrated by. So, this article is just silly, and it shows that the cultural shift in our country regarding love and relationships has been completely flipped on its head. But Chris, if you and I can make an impact in one small corner of our weird little Christian world that we live in, and help people understand and get some perspective on what this stuff is, I don't know about you, Chris, but my biggest battle is that progressive Christianity and this Islamic takeover of the United States. It's very dangerous both ways. But yeah, I don't know. This this article title is just silly to me. So, you got anything you want to finish off with here, Chris?
Well, and again, if nothing else, you should recognize that being a Christian means reading your Bible. Like you were saying, our biggest fight is progressive Christianity, because it's not really Christianity. It's whatever they've morphed it into. But if you're not like reading your Bible, like that worship leader who was saying that she couldn't open scripture because, again, it was triggering, but really we call that convicting. But if you can't open your Bible, then you're not, a true Christian. And it's unfortunate to say, but that's what everything that we do is rooted with. Like, when we talk about this stuff, it's because we're rooting everything that we say in scripture. And that's going to be our fight. That's where our fight is going to start. If you're not in scripture, then you don't know how to defend it. So get into your Bibles, read scripture, and love God with all your heart.
And it's really a culture war with this progressive Christianity and how that's marrying with the leftist ideology and kind of trying to support what they believe in. But as the late great Charlie Kirk said, they don't align. So for 9 seconds,
you cannot
let's let him
you
explain
believe in biblical principles and vote for the principles of the Democrat Party. They're incongruent. They do not fit.
So they're incongruent. They do not fit. Thank you, Charlie Kirk. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for joining us, everybody. You can follow us at American Christian Podcast on Rumble and YouTube, American Christian Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you don't want to watch it. And you can follow Chris at Pastor Chris USA on YouTube and see a lot of his great shorts that he makes over there. Chris, anything else you got coming up that you want the people to know about?
Nope, just continue to follow us. We're growing slowly, and we're being seen, and And so you continue to share with your friends, let them know, especially your Christian friends, because the movement is going to start with a recognition that we need to step up. Like you said, there's hundreds of thousands of Christians who are sitting out the vote right now, and we need every Christian to get activated in order to win our country back.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.